guys? Austin Avellar here.
Hey, well, we really appreciate you guys tuning in again today with us. Got a special episode today. We're going to kind of go through, last episode we talked a little bit about me, we talked a little bit about my history, and we dove into that a little bit. But today we're going to have the opportunity to really dive into Austin and his past and where he came from and how he is currently working in the trades. So, Austin, we're going to talk a little bit about you and your history.
Let's get all the skeletons out of the closet, dude.
Okay, maybe not everything, but what we're going to do is kind of, we're going to figure out a little. I want to know more about you, right? I've known you for a long time, but I want to know more about your history and really what drove you to, do the things. What certain steps in life did you take to get you to where you're at right now, and where you're at right now, and how the trades have influenced who you are today?
Cool. Yeah, because we've definitely had a different path, and I think a lot of it comes down to just some basic guidance, right? The experiences, and you start off with your childhood, so I'll start there. I grew up extremely impoverished, very, very poor, having to wait in food lines, and I remember my mom sending me with the EBT, but back then it was food stamps, down to the grocery store on the bus, having to go get food and crap. And so that was sort of the environment I grew up in. No entrepreneurship. The ideal of what a career was go get hired at the post office, because it's a government job and they have great benefits and you'll have a good pension, right? That word pension, that was the perfect thing to get. And in this town where I was born and raised, it's Lodi, California. We have a General Mills factory there, and it always smelled like Cheerios. Okay, it smelled amazing. That was the best place to work because they had the best hourly wages, the best 401ks, and the best benefits. And if you knew someone that worked there, they had a great middle class house out in Lodi, California, and they were doing it. They were making it, right? And so that was the environment that I grew up in, as far as mindset and what was successful, what wasn't. The whole idea of working hard and being paid on commission and like a sales job, that was looked down upon heavily. And so, going from that to where I am today, which is the complete opposite, where it's like, hey, entrepreneur mindset, you only get what you earn, and that's it, right? I'm not going to go out there. I can't make an hourly wage, because we both know that's not the way to make real money. There's honor in that work, and some people flourish in that environment. But for those who can deal with the pressure of commission and doing that, you really should.
So just a little recap. So you're young. Some of your earliest memories are, riding the bus, with your food stamps, going down to get the food. So how did that shape kind of the next part of your life, right? So you had the early life, right? You're riding the bus, you're told, hey, the post office is the best place to work, right? They got all this different plans. And it's like, those are things that we've been programmed with since we were little, right? Pensions, 401ks, get the best, salary job that you possibly can. And hey, work that 9 to 5. How does that affect, the later part of your life and what you're doing and how you're doing it?
So a big part of the motivation for me, growing up in that life, and I grew up in a broken home, and where my parents were divorced, and my dad was an abusive alcoholic and drug addict in a very bad environment. My mom was, bless her heart, she did her best, but she had to work all the time. And so we didn't have much supervision as kids, but really being in that environment taught me one thing, is I never wanted to be in this again. And more than that, I loved my family, my brothers. I never wanted my kids to have to experience that. And then also on top of that, I gained an appreciation for marriage, because it's like, I grew up in a broken home. I saw exactly what that does to kids, how it affects them emotionally, physically, spiritually, the whole 9 yards, what it does to them. And I decided, once I get married, that's it. And that's it. And she better be on board, because divorce truly for me just is a word that should never have been invented, right? And so that's one of those things that was highly affected by my childhood, was the decision that I never wanted to experience that again, ever. And I get a little bit emotional at times, and you can see it right now. But, it's those are strong experiences that you go through as a child, emotionally scarring and extremely embarrassing. I mean, the embarrassment and the shame you feel standing in a food line or getting on the bus with groceries or having to go to the store and pay with food stamps instead of cash. It's rough. It's rough.
Like thinking about, last episode and kind of talking about my childhood and stuff, it's completely different, right?
Yeah.
Just knowing a little bit about you and just hearing just what we're talking about right now, like I didn't have to go through any of that. Mine was always really geared towards a certain path,
Yeah.
And so you're a young kid. Talk to me a little bit about like high school age. Like what did you do in high school? What were the jobs that you got? What were you looking at? What kind of shaped you into moving towards that sales mind?
So in high school, I played a fair amount of sports, football, and I bounced around between my mom and my dad. And so I didn't have a very stable life, but I did get a job during high school at this company. We manufactured louvers, like louver systems for skylights. And so my first job there was just drilling holes in this big metal bar, and adding in rivets with these little like flange things on them. And I just, all day long, I would do that. And I figured out in that job that I really liked to problem solve. And I got really good at setting up a system to do these rivets faster than anyone else, right? And I was the only non-ex-convict that worked in this factory, which was kind of funny. And I was the only miner, and I'm wondering how many of those people probably shouldn't have been around miners, but who knows? It was kind of a wild environment. And so I created that system, and the boss was like, "Oh, geez, dude, you're doing that pretty good." He's like, "Hey, let me show you how to do this." So then he brought me to the assembly of the frame of the louvers. I was like, "Okay, cool." So then I started doing that, and they showed me how they do it. I was like, all right. And within a day, I figured out a faster way to do it. And so I really liked figuring out a process. I hated the work. After I figured out how to make it better, I hated doing it. And I got bored because it's no longer interesting. So then he moved me from there to assembling or mounting the motors and the chains. Did that, same thing. And then from there, he moved me to actually building the motors, which was the top position of all the guys building the parts, because you had to actually put together electrical components. And so it took a more attention to detail, and they only had one guy doing that. And so they moved him out to do something else. They let me do that. And after about a week of assembling these motors, I was just about to kill myself because it was the worst thing in the world. But it was kind of cool because I got to learn something about myself there. Number one, I hate being in one place for too long. Mm-hmm. Drives me crazy. Number two, I really enjoyed figuring out a process and being challenged. And so that was something that just has driven me in my career. And I know, like anytime I'm met with something, I'm always looking for ways to challenge the process, figure it out, and say, hey, what can I contribute here to make this better? Mm-hmm. And that's an attitude that has served me very well just throughout my entire career. And realizing that I wasn't meant to sit in one spot for too long really is what brought me to sales. Because that was one career that I met a couple of people who did sales and different things, and they weren't sitting still. Like, they were always moving. They were always doing something. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of like those guys. I'm weird. I can't sit still. And that's when I realized, oh, this might be a good career. Plus, there's no requirements to get in. Like, they'll take anyone off the street who's desperate enough to get a commission job. And, there's no requirements. Just, You want to sell? Cool, great. I have no obligation to pay you anything unless you sell something. Right? So go ahead. Go figure it out.
Like, how driven are you to get going?
Right.
So how long did you work in that factory job for?
2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, it was
short-lived.
But hey, I improved the process actually a fair amount. So I I would stay in one station. They'd have me teach another person. Then I'd go and then stay at that station for a day or two. And then I'd teach another person how to do what I was doing. Then I would switch stations. And so, yeah, very short-lived. I made a couple $100 maybe during that job. But I learned some good lessons.
And so after the factory job, what did you do?
So after that, it was pretty close to graduating high school, which I didn't graduate on time because I ended up switching high schools from living with my dad. And this was like 6 months before the end of, maybe a little less than that, 4 months before high school actually ended. And certain schools have different requirements. And the one school I went to didn't have a requirement for something called a senior project. The other one did. And so I didn't have it. And they said, okay, now you can't graduate. Like, well, that sucks. And so I ended up not walking. I went to summer school and I got my high school diploma, like in summer school. And after that, my first job after high school was at Target, being a security guard, which was kind of cool because I got to problem solve. I got to move around. I got to tackle people.
You weren't as big as you are right now, though, right?
No, I was a little bit thinner. Thank you for mentioning that, you piece of crap. Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely not. But I was still a big dude. I was maybe like 250, 260 at the time. And so, yeah, that was a good time. I worked at Target for maybe 6 months. And then that's when I started my journey into sales.
So Target, security guard, taught you a few things. What was the next step?
So next step was selling and mounting displays for Marlboro. And also there was some Starbucks stuff. There was just a bunch of random crap in nasty liquor stores that they would send me into, the places where no one wanted to go. And we would have to say, okay, well, yeah, your display of cigarettes here is out of date. We need to update it. And here's what it is. And it's going to be this much. And it was low dollar. And I carried all this crap in my car and just did that. So it was kind of a business to business. But it was one of those things where you're almost set up as a vendor and they already knew. And so it didn't require much sales skills. But it was still a commissioned job. And so that was the first one. And actually a member of the church that I was attending got me into that. And he kind of ran the whole warehouse, and it was kind of a shady operation.
So did they provide the leads for you, or did you have to go out and look for those leads?
No, they provided everything. Like we had a set schedule. We'd come in the morning, and they say, "Hey, you're driving here, here, and here." Based off what we know, the last time we were there, this is what they're going to need to update to, and here's all your parts and pieces. Go sell the jobs. And so it was a very simple sale. You walked in, you said, hey, you're out of date. We need to bring this up to what Marlboro wants you to have right now. Otherwise, you're out of compliance. And here we go. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, thank you. And they signed a paper. No money was exchanged right there. So, again, it was very easy sale. No money being exchanged. All based off, hey, I'm like the vendor. I'm here to get this set correctly. So that was pretty much it.
You know what's so crazy is I think about it, and there's so many different people that we've trained over the years that have so many different life, like life has taken them in so many different directions, and when I hear the stories and I think about like, man, what has gotten this person to where he's at right now, you know? And that really will define how, we go about training or how we go about doing something, because like we say over at the office, it's like, it's easier to train a salesman to plumb than it is a plumber to sell, right? Because there's so much life that brings you to that point of that kind of a salesman that you are, right? And if you just use all the tenacity and all the built up, like, hey, I had a ton of crap sales jobs before, and this right here is something that we can really, be a driving force for. It makes it easy, right? So I want to hear about that. I want to hear kind of what brought you to Utah, right? 'Cause we're in Utah right now. We're living in Utah. What brought you to Utah, and what brought you to, make that step into the trades?
So we'll skip ahead a few years. Where I found my home was in the building industry. I was selling lumber and hardware for rough construction on large housing projects. And so I'd sell to framers and to contractors and that kind of stuff, $1 million projects, like bigger stuff. And that's really where I started to make some serious money as a salesperson, getting into that low six figures, $120,000. And I ended up working for a manufacturer of hardware that I knew like inside and out. They had this big, thick Bible, thousands of parts and pieces. And it's funny because I actually got my brother a job at the manufacturing facility back in California. And now my mom and my stepdad work there as well. So I have 3 family members still working for this place where I started in. And that took me from living in California to Reno, Nevada. And again, I've moved a lot in my life, and so that is something that I've always found pretty easy relocating. Mm-hmm. So I took a position in Reno, and then I started visiting Utah on my route for Reno. Like I had some buddies out here, and so it was kind of an easy thing to do at the time. And then my wife, her cousin got married out in Draper, Utah, which beautiful area, really nice homes. And at that time she decided, hey, I really want to live in Utah because my cousin's in Idaho and I love Utah. Let's move there. I said, okay, cool. I'll find an opportunity and let's move there. And so I ended up getting in this company based out of California that did sales for countertop manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Great company, great group of guys. I really liked them, actually, and it was kind of sad that I had to leave them so soon. I shouldn't say sad. I felt bad for them that I started, and then I ended up only staying for 3 months, right? And so I moved out here to Utah. I rode a motorcycle here with all my stuff, and I was homeless for a month and a half, 2 months. And you give me crap all the time. You're like, gosh, you should have just reached out. I would have given you a place to stay. But you do what you got to do for your family, right? And that's one thing that I've always had a hard time with is asking for help and reaching out. And so I decided I'd rather be homeless for 2 months and just work my butt off in order to make this happen than not. And so I came out here, was homeless for about 2 months before we finally found a house out in Eagle Mountain that we moved into, which happened to be 5 minutes from your place in Saratoga. Yeah,
not even 5 minutes.
Not even 5 minutes, literally right around the corner. And also, I didn't have, I wasn't using my Facebook. I didn't have Instagram, didn't have anything. And I hadn't used Facebook for like 6-7 years at that time, long time. And so we had fallen out of connection, right? And there came a time when you reached out to my wife and said, hey, if you guys ever need anything, I see you moved over here. I'm out in Saratoga. If you guys have anything, just let me know. And we just bought a couch, and I didn't have a truck. I had this little car, and so I said, oh, cool, yeah, well, let me see if he's got a truck I could borrow. So then I reached out, and we met up at your house in Saratoga Springs.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was literally just barely at a lunch meeting with some reps for credit card processing, and they were asking me, man, what's one of the craziest stories you ever had? And I mean, it's funny that we're talking about this story now, because I was like, okay, you want to hear the craziest story I ever had? I said, I had this buddy Austin, right? Now I'm going to kind of give the story, and I'll let you give your point of view of the story.
Give my version.
He shows up to the house, okay? Austin, you show up to my house, we're talking, and I mean, we're just walking around, and we're just kind of talking.
And it had been, what, 12 years?
19, right? I mean, we got home in 12, right? So 7 years, at least 7 years.
Yeah, 7
right?
years,
Been at least 7 years since we'd seen each other, or really talked with each other. But we're walking around talking, and Austin, being Curious George, right? He's like, man, what do you do for work? You know?
We're talking a really nice house here, okay? Like Saratoga Springs is already an uppity area, and this guy's got a ranch in Saratoga Springs, which is rare. It'll probably be gone here pretty soon, right? But it's just houses being built all around it. Like, beautiful house. And so I'm thinking this guy, who's younger than me by a few years, who got home from the mission about the same time I did, what the hell is this guy doing that I'm not?
Yeah. Like, so he's like, what are you doing? You know, like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, man, I'm a plumber. I work in the trades. And he's like, you're a plumber? It's funny now, the more we've seen it, the more we go about life, you know, and when people ask us, like, what do you do? You know, it's like, I'm a plumber, you know. I plumb houses, you know, I do residential service. And it's like, holy crap. And Austin, you know, he tells me, he's like, man, like, so when can I come work for you? Just like, we started talking like 10 minutes before that, right? He's like, I'm showing him around. He's like, so when am I going to come work for you? I'm just like, well, you know, our trainer, he just barely had knee surgery and he gets back in 2 weeks. And he's like, okay, well, I'll give my job 2 weeks notice and I'll come work for you then. I'm like, okay, well, on Monday you got to show up and get your uniforms ready to go. And by golly, he leaves my house with the truck, right? Drives back. On his way back home, he calls his boss, says, hey man, sorry to say this, but like, hey, I'm looking for a new opportunity in the trades. And the trades is where I want to be. And I could not believe it. Sure thing. Monday shows up. He comes in, says, hey, I'm ready to get my uniforms all ready to go. I'm ready to fill all my paperwork, you know, so when John gets home, you know, I'm going to be ready to go.
It's funny. When I went to go fill out the paperwork, and I'll recap my story, but this part's just kind of a fun detail. They're like, oh, what did you get hired for? I said, I have no idea. And I'm talking to this gal, Ashley Granger. She's like, well, what are you going to do for us? I don't know. I just want to be here. Like, you tell me what the job is. And she's laughing. She's like, that's not how it works. I'm like, that's exactly how this works. I saw the man. I said, hey, you're going to give me a job. And that was that. Now I'm here. Okay. Yep. You figure it out.
So from your point of view, I told mine, right? My whole, my famous thing, you know, it's like, we have shirts now that we made up, some Action Army shirts, right? And it has Austin's name on the sleeve, and on the back it says, hey, show me your paycheck and I'll quit my job right now. You know, it's like, it's kind of a spoof off of that whole Wolf of Wall Street, yeah. But it was just like that. It was like, man, if you can teach me how I can do this, I'll quit my job right now. Right.
So there's one thing in sales jobs that you hear all the time, right? It's all about money. Everyone is so money driven, and everything they teach you is, hey, here's how to make 6 figures, 100 grand or 10,000 a month. And you're a killer. And everyone is just money driven. And I'll tell you right now, 90% of the sales managers out there of the industries that I was in, they talk about all this money, but then they drive Toyota Camrys and they have a smaller apartment than I do. And it's like, okay, you talk a big game, but then you don't have any money. Like, where did it go? And so is this really the opportunity you're telling me? Like, you're selling me on this great opportunity, but is it actually what it is? And so as a salesperson, you're taught to be very superficial. And all you think about is money, money, money. You become very self-centered. And where that's, you know, can be a bad thing, in this case, it was an amazing thing. Because you're able to recognize people who are real. And you can see the success in what they've done. And so first off, Ben, like, I have no idea what you even said the entire time. Like, I didn't care what you had to say. Literally, you described what you did to me, like your job and all that kind of stuff, and what you guys did as plumbers. I understood nothing. I told my wife that I was going to go work on city sewer lines. Like, she's like, well, what are you going to? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to get in the hole. I'm probably going to dig something up. I'm going to have to go sell something to the mayor. I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I'm going to figure it out. Right? Like, I had no clue what you actually were saying. I didn't care. I honestly didn't care. I saw a guy with freaking fire who had something that I wanted, a level of success that for me was unattainable. And so what do you do? Teach me what you do so that I can create that same level of success for myself. And that's all I could hear in my brain, just over and over again. And so, yeah, when I told you, I was like, hey, you know, when can I come work for you? Most serious thing I ever said, just 100% truth, honesty. I was not joking as much as you thought I was joking. You know,
I literally was waiting for like a ha ha ha,
like a ha,
you know,
ha,
like,
ha.
And it was just like, when can I work for you? I was like, is he being serious? You know, like waiting for the ha 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 moment.
Yeah.
Never came.
And it was funny, as I'm driving home and I'm considering everything that just happened, and I call up my boss at the time and I tell him, I'm like, hey, you know, here's what's going on. I have this amazing opportunity to go work for a good friend of mine. He's like, oh, man, like, how long have you known about this? I said, oh, I just left this house like 5 minutes ago. And he starts laughing, and I'm like, dude, I'm not joking. That's how important this is. And as much as I've liked to work with you, you're such a great guy. I'm going to give you a full 2 weeks. I'm going to make sure the next guy coming in is set up. And if you want me to do a little turnover training, or even if you need me to come back after I leave, just let me know. Right. And so we left on good terms, but he thought I was joking at first. He didn't realize how serious I was. And I get home, and I was a little nervous. And when I'm sitting down telling my wife what you do, and then I tell her that I quit my job and I'm going to go work for you, she was like, what? And she's like, well, how much money are you going to make? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea how much money I'm going to make. But you got to see this guy's house. Like, that's how much money I'm going to make right there. Look at the truck he just loaned me. That's an expensive truck. And it's just some basic Chevy, right? But even that truck to me at that time, that's a $500-$600 car payment. I couldn't make that payment, right? I got a wife and 2 kids at the time. Jeez Louise, dude, that's a lot of money, right? And so it's just like, even the ability to loan me a truck like that, and you didn't give 2 craps. You're like, oh, return it whenever you're done with it. The thing didn't even fit in my driveway. I had to park it a couple of blocks away from my little townhouse that I lived in. But yeah, and that's really the whole mindset behind it, is recognizing successful people and putting yourself in the environment to have the opportunity to repeat that success within yourself. And that was something that I learned as sales, and as it came from a place of being self-centered that they teach you in sales jobs, just to be so money focused. There is a positive side to it, and it is that the ability to recognize real people who are actually successful and who can give you the tools that you need to repeat their level of success.
So you show up over there, you see that, it's like, man, and I've heard that so many times, throughout my career, going about it, and when I was thinking about it, when I got into the trades, it really wasn't about a sales position. It was about, how can I make this opportunity into a money-making machine? Today I was talking to one of my good friends. She's actually our realtor. And I just told her, I said, what's crazy is we have a money-making machine. Mm-hmm. Like, we have specialized in figuring out how to make money and how to get people to be able to make money. And that was like one of the things that I thought was really, really cool that you were recognizing, because that's when I knew that, hey, we're getting somewhere now, right? The people outside are seeing, like, hey, this is an opportunity where I could get in here, and we don't even know what we're going to do. But if he's doing it, I know I can do it, right? Like, I'm one of the most basic people there is, right? I'm glad that if you're like, Frick, if he can do it, I know I can do that, okay? So what did the first 6 months to year look like when you first came in, right? You got your uniforms. We finally figured out what we were to do with you, right? Yeah. Obviously, it wasn't working, on city projects or. Obviously not. We definitely don't do that. Yeah. What did that first 6 months look like?
So let's talk about the first 3 months. All right. The first 3 months were, I go from making $100,000 a year to making. What was the training wage back then? $15 an hour?
No, I think we bumped it up for you for 20.
Yeah,
you had a couple of kids.
You gave me 20. I had a couple kids.
You sold me on that one. Yeah. Like, you used your sales ability. You're like, oh man, come on.
You tried to give me 15. Yeah. What a jerk, man. But yeah, I got a wife, 2 kids, a car payment, a house payment. $20 an hour is nothing. It's not enough, not even close. And so I was riding with your brother, John. He was the trainer. He was the man, best salesman you're probably ever going to meet. Like, that's something that me and you both agree on.
Hold on. Just so we can clarify, okay? The whole $20 an hour thing. What did that do for you? What did that, like, when I first told you, I said, hey, Austin, here's the training wage. Like, what did you think when I said, hey, it's going to be $20 an hour? Once we agreed to that, what did you think, like, man, why is this guy paying so little to me? Or were you like, man, here's an opportunity for me to invest into myself? Because I know you were doing the numbers. You're like, yeah, I can live off of $20 an hour, right? You and I had that conversation. You're like, yeah, I can live off of $20 an hour. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to eat ramen noodles, right? I'm going to barely pay my bills. But I know that if I take this opportunity and I invest into myself, I'm going to get it back tenfold.
Yeah. So yeah, that conversation was actually really tough, and I lied to you a little bit. Just so you know, like I could not survive off $20 an hour. Like I couldn't. It was rough. But I knew what you guys were offering. I didn't want to be unfair, and so the fact that I was able to negotiate up a little bit made me feel a little bit better about the situation. As far as it goes, like the dollar wage really didn't matter. I wasn't focused on that. I mean, whenever we first talked, I didn't even know what the potential was. I just knew that I could learn to be successful. And so I didn't even know what the job was, let alone if I was to focus on that dollar wage, I would have never taken the job, even at $20 an hour. At $30 an hour, might have considered it. But if you're focused on like that hourly wage, which thankfully is something that I learned a long time ago, is that hourly wage just limits your ability to earn. I knew that this next 3 months was going to be hell, and I was going to invest in myself to learn the skills to make the real money. And so I knew I was going to dig myself into a hole. But then knowing myself and knowing what the opportunity was, I knew I could get myself right back out. And you know, I had support from you and from your family too, and it's like I can't be in a better environment. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have been in a better environment. So having that $20 an hour truly was you could have paid me $0 an hour. I would have been willing to lose my house, right? I lost my car. I don't know if you know that. I don't think I've told you that. But I got my car repossessed. I didn't pay it for 3 months. And I made that calculation. I said, you know what? I don't care. They can come repossess my car. They can come repossess my motorcycle. But I cannot lose this opportunity. I can't. And that was tough. Mm-hmm. That was really tough. My oldest kid still remembers it. And it was funny, not too long ago, he said, hey, Papa, you remember that blue car we used to have? Remember when those guys came to take it away? That was tough.
But understanding the sacrifice and understanding what could be the upside potential is what made it worth it for you. Because the thing that we run into every single, we run into this, there's two paths, right, that you can take. You can take the path less traveled, or you can take the path that's more traveled, right? But, do we want to go where everybody else is going, or do we want to go to a place where, not very many people have gone? And if we can make it on that path where not many people have gone, I mean, the potential is way more. Is that what you were thinking in that moment?
Oh, 1,000%. I knew that little car and that motorcycle, those little material things meant nothing to me, because I knew that on the backside of that, I'm going to be able to provide at a higher level that my family has never experienced before. I knew it, and because I could see it. And I got a little loan for like $1,000, and I went out and I bought some nasty Jeep, just some dirt nasty Jeep that I didn't register. My wife actually got a ticket on that Jeep because I couldn't afford to register it, and so I did that just after my cars got repossessed, bought that car. And then after the 3 months was over, started selling, which was January. And John, top salesman, just killer. Me and him running together. I don't think we had a week under $100,000 while we were in every single week. Like it was bumping. Like we were pushing really hard. We were knocking doors to find more opportunities. We were working like just animals during that time, which was a great experience to have. The process of selling a sewer line to me was very simple. And again, doing what I do, I like to take it and find ways to make it better. You put your own spin on it, right? You guys give us the framework, and as a salesperson, you got to add your little bit of personality to it. And so after the 3 months is over, first month out, it was me and John neck and neck, just fighting and battling each other. Mm-hmm. And, he ended up doing just shy of like $300,000 that first month, and I ended up doing right around 270. And so I remember talking to him about it now. He's like, oh, I was scared you were going to beat me. He's like, as the trainer, I couldn't let you beat me, which is such a cool feeling to have for him. And my only goal was to beat him, right? And that's such a great environment to be in. You guys push each other, you work hard, you're happy, you're having a great time. And selling that much in that 1 month, instantly I was able to pay my bills. I was able to afford new things. A couple months later, I went and bought a truck, right? Went and bought a truck. Me and my wife discussed, what kind of vehicle should we get? I was like, what if we got a truck? Because then we could do this and that. She's like, okay, cool. A few months later, we went out and bought a truck. And then after that, my wife wanted a van. Okay, cool. Let me go buy you a van. A year after that, hey, why don't we buy a house? What are we doing? Now we're making $200K a year, $250. Why don't we go buy a house? Cool, yeah, let's go buy a house. And we found a house that we liked. Right? And so it just starts to snowball. And it's the realization of what I saw before. And you take these small steps and you start making some money, and all you're doing is reinforcing what you already knew. And what I knew was, I have a guy here who's successful more than what I have been. And now I want to repeat that process. And so, yeah, all that did was just reinforce. And, there's always hard times. There's always bad days. And in the trades, you end up working 12, 14 hours sometimes and, having to do things that maybe you didn't want to do. And there was times when I have an angry customer here and I have a crew who can't get there. And I would pull the boards off, and I got in the hole and I started digging. And I wouldn't tell you about that because I knew you'd probably be upset. Like, hey, what the heck are you doing in that hole digging? You need to be out selling the neighbors. Go knock the neighbor's door and sell them another job. I was like, well, you do what you got to do. And there's times when, it's tough, but when you see your dreams becoming a reality, there's nothing that will stop you. Nothing. As long as you stay focused. If you allow yourself to fall into those same self-centered ways that a lot of sales industry teaches you, if you allow yourself to fall victim to like being a drama queen and just demanding, then yeah, it sucks and you won't last very long in the trades. But if you learn how to get rid of your ego, if you learn how to stay humble and learn from the people around you who have been there and who are going there, and if you put yourself in the right situations, my gosh, there's nothing like this opportunity. People will always need to flush their toilets. They'll always need to stay hot and cold, depending on the season. Mm-hmm. And they'll always need to be able to turn on the lights. What other thing is so essential to our life than the trades? Like, it's so essential. And I don't care if I'm selling plumbing, HVAC, or electrical. I'll learn anything, and I can go into that house and I could use the sales training that I've received over the last, how old am I now? 35, over the last 20 years, 15 years, and I'll take that and I'll go help that customer.
Apply it to the customer's needs. And that's something that for us, being in this particular situation, it's like, we have so many normal people, right? And that are so abnormal in the way that, hey, they can, because getting into the trades, changing your life is not easy, right? Changing every aspect, especially your earning potential, is not easy. Investing into yourself, right? Nobody really ever says, hey, invest into yourself.
Yeah.
Take the hard road and invest into yourself because it's going to reap tons of rewards, right? So you're in the trades now. You're making great money, $250,000 a year, right? You're moving forward. What drives you to what you're doing now? What is bringing you to the seat that we're in right now, doing the stuff that we're doing right now? What does that look like?
So Action Army and the Action Academy really birthed from another major change in my life. So I went from selling sewers and plumbing to, we had a couple electricians quit, to saying, hey, we need someone in this position that's here for the long haul, that's a serious competitor, that's going to be able to help this department get to where it needs to go. And that's when I sat down with John and we were talking and like, who can we put in that position? And, John is a natural salesman. He wants me to give him the answer that he's looking for. I already knew he wanted me to do it. So I could tell by the questions he was asking me, trying to lead me to that road. And I just said, you know what, John, it's just me. I said, it's just me. It's time for me just to switch departments. I'm going to go be an electrician. And he said, oh, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure, dude. Don't play around. It was so funny. He was just leading me with his questions, and you know, a good salesman loves to be sold. I'll tell you that. And so, yeah, I decided to take on the challenge of, you know, we applied, got my license as an electrician, started training in our electrical department, and again, doing what I do. There was a lot about the sales process in our electrical from what we currently had that I really didn't like, and it just didn't click with me. And so I had to figure out a way where I could go into someone's house and sell what we were doing. And so learning about the basics of how electricity works and how the panel is supposed to look and all these other things took a little bit of time, but unfortunately I didn't have that much time. I had to learn these things very quickly and learn how to sell them quickly, because now I'm a top performer. I have more bills. I have 4 kids now. And what am I going to go back to $20 an hour? No, not going to lose my house. Like, losing a car is one thing, but losing a house is another thing. And so at this point in my life, no, I'm not going to sacrifice those things. I'm just going to have to buck up and get it done. Well, as you can imagine, in that environment, it's very stressful, low money, and just trying to learn. And it came to a point where I was considering either quitting, like literally like considering quitting and going and do something else, some other place, or just buckling down and saying, hey, I need to figure this out. And that's when I came across a training platform, which was from our good friend Andy Elliott and a gentleman named Danny Klein. And I came across their stuff, and it has nothing to do with the trades. It was all like extremely mindset oriented and also car sales orientated. Either way, I knew that my mindset was bad, and I knew I had to get my attitude right. And so his message really connected with me. Also, I was about 100 pounds more than what I am currently. And so that was another thing that really affected me, and something that he talks about a lot is your health and how it can affect your mind and decrease your performance. And so in this time when I was questioning if I could pay my mortgage, I was learning a new trade, trying to not only learn a new trade, but how to sell a new trade, very different from sewers. I decided to spend about $3,000 on training, which was all the money I had. I said, you know what? It's time to go all in. All in. Bam. That's another big sacrifice, a big kind of a crazy thing, but that's sort of my style. It's like all in or nothing. And that's something that I don't know where that came from, and I feel like it's a character flaw, but it helps me to make a jump, right? You make a leap, you're either gonna fly or you're gonna fall. And as of now, it's served me well. So I'm just going to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Right? That same day, that morning, I spent $3,000. That same day, I made $4,000 in my pocket in sales. Now, what do you think that does for a salesman? For any person, if I invest $3,000 into myself and then I turn around that same day and make $4,000,
you're like, how can I keep this rolling?
Can I spend another $3,000? Like, what else can I do to spend more money? And that's when I really realized, invest in yourself. Like, there's no business problems. My problem wasn't having to learn a new trade and how to learn how to sell it. My problem was myself. Like, I was getting in my own way. And as soon as I released that negative part of my attitude, that desire to figure out the process perfect, because that's one of the things I like to do. Well, as soon as I got rid of that and focused on the true talent, which is how to find and fix people's problems, just opened my world up immediately. I made $4,000 that day. I made $2,000 the next day, and that finished out the week. So that week I made $6,000, made my money back and more, and I was able to pay my mortgage. So it was just instant gratification, right? Not a good word to use, but in the sales industry, it's so good, and especially in the trades, we get paid every week. And so and that was coming to the end. I was able to take that money. I paid my mortgage, and I never looked back.
Well, and one thing I really want to kind of dive into is like, what did that do for your customer experience? Like, how did that help your overall customer experience, changing your mindset, right? Changing your mindset, investing into yourself, right?
Yeah.
You had that personal development that you're now working on, you're studying every day, you're freaking focusing on is, hey, I need to be better, right? What did that do for your customer experience?
Oh, it's made it so much better. And to be honest, I wish I had gone through this transformation with sewers, because I was pretty good with the sewers, and I know those things inside and out, unfortunately. But yeah, it's so much better now. Like, as far as it goes, I understand that there is only one thing to focus on, and that's the person sitting right in front of me, right? And if I'm not taking the time to ask them questions, to get to know them, to understand their true needs, not just, hey, is this breaker not working right? Or is this outlet not need to be changed out? No, who cares about that? Like, yeah, I do care about that and it needs to be fixed, but what does Ben Jordan care about? What are his goals for this house? Like, what do we need to look for in order to make your goals come true? How can I help you meet your goals? It completely changes the sales process. Instead of focusing on my paycheck, instead of focusing on what I need to fix, I focus on the person. And it's kind of crazy. People think that, and I've heard salesmen say, well, if you do that, then maybe your estimates will go lower and you'll have a lower ticket average. And yeah, you might close more jobs, but you'll be selling less. It's actually quite opposite. The more you get to know about them, the more things come out. The more you understand, hey, not only do you want to fix this, but you're tired of these lights. You want can lights through the whole house. You're tired of these old toggle switches. You want the new nice ones. Oh, you want a USB port in this plug. Oh, whatever it is, whatever your goals are, whatever you want. Now we're selling just a small little thing to meeting their needs permanently and helping them reach their goals. And,
all too often in the trades, do we get in this trance where we're just like, there's the problem, attack the problem. Don't talk to the customer. Hey, I got to make sure you understand that needs, obviously they understand that needs fixed, right?
Yep.
But if you're not communicating with them and you're not helping them through that path, how are we ever going to know, right? The biggest complaint we get, right, is why do I have to see you guys so much, right? Why, if the outlet's bad right there, right, and we have a problem with the breaker, did we just not fix them both at the same time? Right? Yeah. Why didn't you just tell me, hey, the breaker's got a problem too with the outlet? Why did we only fix the outlet and then the breaker's going bad too? It's like, all too often when I do that, and, along comes this process of personal development. We're talking about it, and it's just like we see a complete change.
Yeah.
In Austin, right? It's like the change that he's been looking for. That's a change that we, as the ownership team, had been looking forward to and looking for. It's like, holy cats, this is great, right? And then along comes the idea of the Action Academy. And so as I started making these changes, I realized that I need to help the team around me, because I saw a bunch of guys suffering. I saw them, they're showing up, they're doing their jobs, but maybe not as good as they could. And a lot of the guys hate their life. It's like, gosh, it's so hard to make this much money. And I get it because I was there, but really I don't get it. And it's something you don't understand. Oh, I'm making $200,000, $300,000 a year. Why do I feel like crap? And most people would say, who are making $50,000 a year, oh, if I could just make that much money, I'd be so happy. Well, it's not so much about the money. It's about the investment into ourselves and how we're willing to improve or not. And so I saw that need, and I started inviting people. I said, hey, I'm going to show up early to the office. We're already getting there at 7:30. I'm going to show up at 7, and I'm going to do some training by myself. You're welcome to join me. And I got mixed reviews. I got some guys saying, hey, oh yeah, I'd love to come. I'd love to see this. I was like, look, I spent a lot of money on this training, and you guys, I'll give it to you for free. Just come be with me and show me that you're invested. So Monday through Friday, I told everyone, I'm going to show up early. I'm going to do it. And then I started thinking about it, how I can make this something even more. And I came up with the name Action Academy, which was a pretty cool name, I thought, and it's got a good ring to it. It sounds good.
And of course we're Action Plumbing. So
I still remember the day you sent it to me. You said Action Academy, and I was like, huh. And then I wrote sales training for the trades on the bottom, our little
sales training for the
little
trades.
slogan there. And it's like, gosh, it rings so true. It's as business owners, we get stuck in a trance, we've always been big about training.
Always.
We've always been big about like, hey, investing into our employees with training because we always want to be the best, but having an actual school environment where these guys, not only are they coming to, right, but they're showing up because they want to show up, and they're showing up an hour early, right? Before it was hard to get them there on time.
Yeah. At
right?
9.
At 9. But like now, 7 o'clock in the morning, they're showing up, right? We got 85% of them working out every single day, right? They're worrying about their health. They're talking about their finances and things that in the trades, no one ever talks about, right? It's just like, hey, we're going to get a bunch of guys together and you're going to make good money and that's it. Go home.
That's it.
So like that to me rang so true. And I it's been such a great experience since we started doing it. It's just seeing that
just
path.
that focus on it's truly a culture of excellence, right? Raising the standards. And that was the whole goal, is like, I'm going to raise the standards for myself, and now I'm going to invite others to do that with me. And we focus on a lot of different things, but that self-development, we talk about our faith, right? We talk about finances, we talk about fitness, and we talk about our families. And I talk about how I can improve an entire person, because I know from personal experience, I don't have a sales skill problem. I have a personal problem that's stopping me from selling, right? And as I take that and apply it to my team, I took full ownership. I said, no, I'm no longer a member of this team. I am the leader of this team. And no one gave me that job. No one asked me to start holding meetings at 7 a.m., right? No one asked me to start typing out the Action Academy and our new standard and creating all these things. No, I just knew it was the right thing to do. I knew it's exactly what I needed. And if I needed it, I knew the other guys needed it too. And so I started doing this. And, I've always been involved in our sales training, and I've always had the opportunity to teach here and there and to help out in that capacity. But it went from being something, it was still well planned, but it wasn't very organized, to now not just well planned, but organized with a goal and really driving forward. And so just creating that environment of raising the standard, holding ourselves accountable. We came up with the list of core values that we developed with the team. No one asked me to do that, right? And I said, hey, I'm gonna survey our team. What are your core values? Write them all down. Great. We narrowed them down to like 21 or 23, some weird number of core values. And now we've got those plastered up all over the building because they're great things.
And it's the team driven, right?
It's team driven.
It's not something that I created and said, hey, you live by this, right? The team got together and we said, hey, these are our core values. This is what makes us tick. This is what makes us action.
Yep.
Right. And we got those together, and there's anything that I could recommend, right? As a business owner and, a member of a very well organized team of killers, right? Is having that list of, goals, and having the list of core values that is not just my core values, right? But our team's core values will increase sales, it'll increase productivity, it'll increase happiness, the general happiness, right? Andy tells us all the time, hey, you invest into your personal development, nothing will stop you.
Yeah.
Right. And we've been focusing on our personal development every single day. And it's a big reason is because of you. You really brought that into our lives. And it was something we were kind of doing, we were dabbling in, and we just didn't have any structure to it, right? It's like, hey, once we really got some structure to it, man, the lives of everybody on the team is changed drastically. Not only the sales guys, but we're doing it with the install guys. We're doing it with the office personnel. We're doing it with the upper management. Like, I mean, it's completely changing the culture of the business.
We got way more participation. Morale is up, and people just have better attitudes. And what's crazy is they're working more, right? They're working more. They're taking more responsibility. And people always complain about having to work so much and wanting to work less and wanting more time off.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not that. They don't feel they're not fulfilled in their role.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that we're bringing a level of fulfillment through purpose, they're willing to work more and do more and are happier about it.
You know what's crazy is we rarely hear anything about money anymore. Rarely. It's like, I can't remember the last time I heard somebody say that they're not making enough money because they're personally developing, right? Their personal development every single day and being fulfilled more as a human being, right? And in your investment into your team is netting them more money.
Yeah.
Right? And they're putting in more effort. They're working more hours. They're doing more, right? And it's just like completely has changed, right?
And it's not like instantaneous. Like we struggle with these guys to really get it across. Not everyone is all in or nothing like me, and like you. I know you're very similar in that way. And so some of these guys struggle with it, but the fact that we're creating this new environment allows us to have open conversations that are received in a better way. Where before criticism would turn around and that employee or that person would say, hey, I was just criticized. Woe is me. I hate my life. I hate my job. I'm going to go work somewhere else. And they would complain to the team. Now it's like, hey, yeah, I just got called out. I need to figure this out. And that's the attitude difference that I'm seeing. It's small things. And we got a couple guys who, they're having a hard time living up to the higher standard. But that's the small attitude change that I've seen is instead of coming back and saying, hey, woe is me, that I'm such a victim here. No, there's no victimhood here. You're a man. You're an adult. Be an adult. And you're going to take responsibility. And so taking that small step of, hey, actually, I do need to improve. That's the big culture difference. And a guy like that we can invest in, right? A guy who's not willing to improve, who doesn't want any change, who doesn't want a higher standard, who wants to do the bare minimum and skate by, might not be the best culture fit. But a guy who's willing to actually sit back and say, okay, maybe I should change it and actually understand it, even though it's a hard road, like we're willing to put the time in, the effort to help that person out.
And that's, if I could recommend anything, we're getting to the very end right here. We're gonna be getting off here pretty soon. But if I could recommend anything as a business owner, as a coach, and and as a mentor in this game, in this industry, is not figure out how to motivate the team, not only to motivate them with money, right, but motivate them with the personal improvement.
Yeah.
Right? If you can motivate them to personally improve every single day, right, and get them to understand the why to what they're doing every day. I asked the install crew today, right? I said, what makes you wake up in the morning, right? Why do you wake up in the morning?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is it because you're so excited to get out there and help the people that are entrusting us with their work? Or is it because you just want to show up to be able to make your $15, $20, $30 an hour and go home? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if I could ever, give any kind of, mentorship or advice to anybody, it would be, hey, get your team to personally improve every single day. And if you do that, you're going to see a change, just like Austin saw, just like we're seeing right now with our guys, and you're going to really see a change in the entire culture of the business.
Yeah. Can you improve the quality of your employees' lives without giving them a raise? Absolutely. But it's hard. It's hard work, right? And it all starts with your example and with your leadership leading from the front. And so being willing to make those sacrifices and work that hard, it's tough. But you can do it without giving them more money. You can improve their quality of life.
And ultimately, they're going to make more money because they're improving their quality of life. And when their quality of life improves, things just get better.
Yeah, their performance improves.
So we're going to get off right now. Austin, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you as a human being and your level of tenacity you bring to
Thank
here
you.
and to this podcast. If you guys have any questions, hit us up on Instagram. You can DM us here, let us know your questions. If you have any questions, you want to know more about what we do and how we do it, let us know.
Yeah, appreciate it.